Hey YouTube, I'm back with a very belated video. Over a month ago I was doing a Q&A series and I sort of forgot the last part. And I hadn't forgot the question. I didn't, just omit them or wasn't going to answer them. They were in my mind to answer. There was only questions from two people left. So this video is going to be the tale of two Stuarts. Because I've got questions from TootyUK and Ninjabearhug. Obviously, I'm sure you know them, very well known YouTubers. It's amazing how many times people actually say that, I'm sure you know them. But in this case, I'm sure you do. Very well known, great pickups, great, gameplay videos all the time. Recently, like Stuart started doing, Ninja Bear started to do, gameplay, a gameplay kind of series for the Game Boy, and it's absolutely been great stuff to watch. As soon as I see one pop up, it's like, oh great, can't wait to see what he's trying out, because it's very new to me as well, and it's great to see him take on a whole new kind of set of games. And on the other flip side, the other Stuart, TTK, is started to do some. He was doing some gameplays for this new TV he got, which is a pretty damn nice looking TV, although incredibly complicated to get set up. So yeah, great to see some gameplay stuff there, and of course the old package and pickups. And actually, TootyUK went for a fairly epic one there. It was over an hour, but it was good stuff nonetheless. But anyway, they asked me some questions over a month ago, and I did 4 parts of the video and kind of just ran out of time to get the other bits done, and just other videos kind of seemed to come in. I wanted to do them, and they just kept getting pushed back and pushed back. But I said, look, I finally got to sit down and answer these questions. So here we go. This is the last part of the FAQ. Very late, but however, we got there in the end. So up first, we'll take TootyUK, because he asked questions first, and he asked first up, what is your favorite SMS game? I have a feeling I might have touched this before, but Wonder Boy 3: The Dragon's Trap, a superb game. Basically everything about it is good. It's got great music, great sound. Wait, that's the same thing. It's got great music, great visuals, and great gameplay. It's addictive, and yeah, it's kept me coming back for years and years. It's really easy to get into, but it's got a lot of depth. The kind of cliches of what's good about a game. I think I might have said that the top 3 were probably Sonic 1 and Alex Kidd, kind of rounding it out. Not that he asked, but I may as well say. And I said, number 2, if you were a Sega advisor and they hinted that they might get back into the hardware market, what would you suggest that they do and why? That is a really interesting question, really tough one. I remember when I seen it going, crikey, and I thought of an answer. Now I kind of think I've forgotten. But anyway, yeah, a lot of people would say that Sega shouldn't get into the hardware market. They're better off where they are, they couldn't compete, and so on. I understand why that is. It kind of makes sense because there's a massive monetary commitment to make a machine. However, I also feel that having your own platform gives you more of an identity, and I think that's what's helped Nintendo and their brand remain strong. If you look at a lot of the games they bring out, sure, you have the Marios, the Zeldas, and so on, and they would always sell because they're top tier titles. But they also have a lot of middle tier titles, and I think that if they were only third party, those titles would struggle to sell in the numbers that they sell on Nintendo's own platform. And I think the same has happened to Sega, where they simply have become just another number. I know Sega of Europe have run into difficulties, and they have this principle now where they're going to refocus on their core platforms or their core franchises. And I think they listed the core franchises as being Sonic, which is kind of obvious, Total War, Aliens versus, or just the Aliens franchise, I guess, and I think it was a Football Manager. Now, when I think of Sega, they're not really the franchises that come to mind, and I think a lot of people would say that too. So it kind of feels like there isn't that kind of nurturing of their properties that Nintendo have done. And so that, I actually think, yeah, if they had their own machine, now they would have to find their niche, but if they did, I think that there is a scope for Sega to have a platform to publish their properties and franchises. Now, to be honest, it's not really practical. I don't see how they could, leverage a piece of hardware and get market share to cover the cost. But yeah, because I mean, you look at the last machine, the Dreamcast, and it did things largely right. It had provision for online connectivity. It was sufficiently powered. It had an innovative memory card system. It had taken kind of the expansion side of the N64 and brought it forward. 4-player ports for local multiplayer. There was a lot of good thought gone into the Dreamcast, and it was affordable. Of course, part of that was it didn't have a DVD drive to keep it affordable, and maybe that cut it down. So you would kind of think, well, Sega, I guess, should do a similar system. But even if they did, they would be going up against, big guns like Sony and Microsoft with much bigger wallets. So if that wasn't enough then, when they pretty much had the right piece of hardware and the right software, then it's hard to see how they could do it now. Maybe if someone, offered them a boatload of money so that they were competing on an even keel. And if they did, I would say, let's pretend, to answer the question properly, that the reality of the marketplace is different, and we can let's pretend that they have infinite money to go in and create a product. What would I like to see? Well, I would like to see a competently powered, robust system akin to something like a Dreamcast, and I would like to see a focus on a broad range of their franchises that go back to their 8-bit and 16-bit days. So look at franchises that they've let kind of go dormant and bring them back into a modern age. And it doesn't have to be 3D. Like, say for example, something like Streets of Rage. Great series that they totally let drop. But there's great remakes, Beats of Rage, Streets of Rage remake, and so on. Now, we're in the age of digital downloads and things like that. Perhaps they could do, as a launch title on their digital platform, Streets of Rage 4. Or same with Alex Kidd. They could do an Alex Kidd Miracle World HD remix, where it's some old, some new graphics. And then some of those they could try and leverage into bigger launch platform type of titles. Sonic would obviously lead the way there, and so on. You get maybe Virtual Tennis and Monkey Balls, which seem to be kind of canon or fodder for launch Windows 2, and then work with third parties to get some of the Capcoms and Konamis and whatnot on board as well. So I would just say to Sega, don't forget your past. You have a rich history and a rich legacy, and you should leverage it a hell of a lot more than you do. You plug in, say, the Mega Drive collection, by God, there's a lot of good games, a lot of good franchises. Use them. So, yeah, that's my answer. Let's move on, because I've rambled a bit on that. But it was a great question. Number 3 then. Best or earliest memory of an old arcade and the games, if you have any. It's interesting because, well, he says if you have any. Not that many, to be honest, but I do have a few. I don't remember which is my earliest, or I guess my best, but I'll tell an arcade tale. Consider this story time. So, we didn't have a hell of a lot of arcades or places where there would be arcade machines. So for me to actually find an arcade machine at all was, a revelation. I remember, literally hunting them down. That's still today, I suppose. One example was that I found a Ghosts and Goblins machine, or was it Ghouls and Ghosts? I can never remember between those two. The later one. Arcade machine in Dublin Airport, and we were waiting to pick up, I think it was my grandparents. They were coming back over from a holiday in America, and I was just, oh my god, they have an arcade machine. So I got some money off my parents and went over to have a go. But as it turns out, the machine was set up incorrectly, and instead of giving me 1 go per the credit, it gave me like 4 or 5 goes, which was great on so many levels. One, I didn't have to go back asking for more money, which was great, but also the game is so bloody hard that I was going to burn through that credit super fast anyway. So that's one memory. But actually, that's not the one I meant to talk about. What I meant to talk about was also kind of a lone arcade machine that kind of grew. Up near, funny enough, where my grandparents were as well, there was a Chippers, and they did absolutely great chips, superb chips. And you're probably going, what the hell? Is this a food show? No. But in the Chippers one day, all of a sudden they had a pole position stand-up machine. Now that makes sense if you think about it, because you're kind of standing there, and the chips will be 5 minutes or however long. I'll just go and quickly throw in a few games and motor along until my order's done. So of course then I would go down with my dad every time we were up to get the chips. If I'd go in with him hoping that he'd give me a few pence to go on the machine, and one day he did, and I was like, I loved it absolutely. It's one of my favourite games, actually. Pole position kind of probably set me in the road to enjoying racers, but I found it quite hard, because I was relatively small, and I think there was a foot pedal, if I recall, and a steering wheel. So it was a tricky game, but I really enjoyed playing it. And I got to play it the odd time after that, not much, to be fair. But then one day, I did get to play it, and the guy who runs the place made some comments when I'd asked, my dad, could I go on it, but all the games in the back. And I was like, huh? What? It turns out there was this big extension-y place that was run during the summer as a mini amusement. Now I don't know how they just started this up, or had my parents, said, shh, don't let them know. But of course, as soon as I was like, what? We gotta go. So the next day I went down and went around, and sure enough, it wasn't massive by most people's standards, but for me, who'd never seen more than one machine at any one time, this was the massive, biggest thing I've ever seen in my life. There would have been 20 or 30 machines, and they probably had air hockey or something else like that. I don't particularly remember that well. But I remember just wandering around looking at these machines, and they were older machines, and just going, oh my god, which one will I play? Because I knew I couldn't play them all. Like, that would have been too expensive. I had a few pounds and had to pick and choose. So I remember playing Moon Patrol and quite enjoying it because it looked spacey, and I kind of like that. And I probably played the odd space shooter that would have had Galaga or Galaxy, and maybe even Space Invaders. But one of them that really caught my eye because it was so colourful was the arcade version of Wonder Boy. Now, I can't remember if I had the Master System or not at the time. If I did, I might have had Wonder Boy 3, and of course the title would have went, hey, that's the first Wonder Boy, because I probably would have even seen the title screen in the Sega catalogue. So of course I was like, gotta have a go at that. So went over and put my money in, thought I was playing, and I was passing away, jump, move, and the game was moving along. And I said, well, this doesn't seem to be quite reacting as I was thinking, but the game was progressing, so like, I'll keep going. I'm doing rather well, because in the other games I'm getting my ass kicked. I died fairly quickly. Of course, that was until the game reset and went to the demo screen, and I realised, or to the title screen, and I realised that was just the demo track mode. Felt like a bit of a lemon, but I think surely everyone has thought that they're playing the game when they're really on the track mode at some point in their life. At least that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So yeah, I really enjoyed that day out to the arcade. I don't even remember too many games I played, but I remember it was the experience more of going to one than the games themselves. Some of them were great. So there we go, bit of an arcade story to round out TootyUK's questions. Some really good questions in there. The Sega one made me think a lot. And funny enough, the next question, or the last question, I went into talking about Sega again. So very Sega centric. So, on to Ninjabearhug's questions then. And he asked, would you like an arcade cab? And if so, which one? I definitely would like an arcade cab because they're a very unique experience. Kind of ties into the last question rather nicely. It's like I planned it. But as for which one, that's a very tough call. Part of me thinks a main cab, just for the practical, reason, where you can stick in a load of games, or even one of those multi-boards, 60 in one or 200 in one, things like that, and you can just, play many games with the arcade, stand up and play, situation. On the other hand, I feel, would it not be better to have a dedicated machine? if I really want to play MAME, I guess I could set it up on another device, or you could emulate it, or these games have home ports. So with an actual dedicated machine with dedicated artwork and something that's a little more unique make more sense. And then I start to think of games that I quite enjoy, maybe things like Donkey Kong and so on. Think, they're iconic and they might add something to a collection. But I'm not so sure because, well, they're only one game. And even though they are the original hardware, really, I mean, playing Donkey Kong on an arcade machine versus playing it emulated on a modern console or even on a home port isn't that different. And that makes me think, what about a system that has some form of bespoke setup or control? Maybe a sit down, or something that's got like a flight controller or something odd. I would say that would be very interesting. Like something like a sit down, or if you're going to go all out crazy, requiring loads of space, one of those earlier kind of Sega, environmental machines, Space Harriers, Afterburners, G-Locks, those type of things. Not my favourite games, but the environmental aspect is just crazy in them. If you tailor it down a little, maybe something like the environmental Outrun, the sit down, full sit down version. It's not really environmental. Actually, environmental Outrun 2006 or 2 or whatever they call it in the arcades. That is awesome. The whole bloody car shakes away when you're crashing, as I tend to do. That is, yeah. If you could only have one, I need to build a massive space on for it because it's big. Certainly, I live in an apartment, so it's I need to get a second apartment to house it, but it's great. So yeah, let's go with that one. It is a question of if you can have any. And yeah, Stuart asked then, do you ever wish you didn't have stacks of games all over the place? Hey, but my stacks have been dramatically reduced since part 4 of the Q&A. In all seriousness, yes. I really don't like stacks of stuff all over the place. In a space that's set aside for it, yes, that's great. I'd like to have them presented and on shelves and whatnot. Absolutely. But just have stacks of game. Like at the moment, there's stacks of games on the kitchen table, stacks of games here. It's like they're all over the place, and that does get a little frustrating. So, definitely. I think this is meant to lead on to the next question. He said, "Would you trade them all for anything?" No. So that kind of flips the reverse thing. I might dislike having the stacks everywhere, but at the same stage, no, I wouldn't. I just can't sell my games. I could trade away a few things, maybe, and certainly duplicates, yes. But as for just generally selling off my games, no. Every time I've done it in the past, I've regretted it big time. So, and I see so many people that do it. They sell off a console time and time again, even, and then they have to get it back because they have to play the games. And I'm like, why do you keep selling it? To me, I know that if I was to sell one of my consoles, even one of my lesser played consoles, I know there would come a time where I'd want to dig it out again, and it'd probably cost me more money to get it back with the way things are going. So I just say no, I'll keep it. And there we go. That's the last question. As I said, it was a very belated finish, but we got there in the end, and it was another great bunch of questions, if you ask me. Very Sega-centric, but then again, that's hardly surprising from the two Stuarts. So thanks to TootyUK and Ninjabearhug for the questions. Really enjoyed them, even if we put it off to answer them. That wasn't actually because they weren't great questions, they really were. And thanks to you all for sitting through 5 parts in the end, crikey. But this is the last part. We got there. Hope you liked and enjoyed, and don't forget to comment and all that good stuff, which I always forget to say and always muddle up at the end anyway. And click to subscribe if I actually remember to put a button there to subscribe. Yep. I'll see you again soon for another video that won't be Q&A this time.